move now to 8.1, which is the draft alcohol policy. So I'll pass to you, Councillor Shannon, and I'll just step back.
Thank you, Mayor Nigel. So I take it everybody has, of course, read this, but I might hand straight over to you, Mr. Cooper, if you don't mind, for a run through.
Well, thank you, Councillor Shannon. So through you, Your Worship, this report seeks the approval from Council to take the draft statement of proposal for the joint local alcohol policy out for consultation. And it's been a journey, a fairly lengthy journey, possibly complicated by having an election in the middle of it. But we are finally getting to a point where we can take something out to the community. And I'll hand over to Deb to speak to it a little further and answer any questions.
Thank you. So we've had two joint committees, the first being the first part of the first year, and then as Paul said, that we've had this election in the middle, and we had to establish a second joint committee. So the joint committee has got two representatives from all three councils. It represents Waimate, Mackenzie and Timaru. The local alcohol policy has got to be reviewed every 6 years, and this is part of that process. It doesn't really matter how long it takes to do the review. So the Joint Committee has done some pre-consultation and has sent out requests to about 40 different stakeholders, and that includes the three agencies, the main three agencies, and that's been Medical Office of Health Police and our own District Licensing Inspector, as well as the iwi, and a number of stakeholders and businesses and so forth. All the feedback was taken on board, deliberated quite extensively, and the view of the Joint Committee has been that they essentially wanted to keep the policy the same, and that they would look at making one minor change to the special licences, and that being clause 56, and that is when setting discretionary conditions for special licences, the DLC must have regard to the previous proven responsible history, if any, of the applicant. And then there are two options on the table today. One is to either approve the proposed local alcohol policy, or to make an amendment if you feel that amendment should need to be made. And then should Council approve the proposed draft LAP, it will go out to full public consultation, and that all three councils need to approve it before we send it out to public consultation. So I'll now hand over to Councillor Pye and Councillor Jackson, who may wish to add to my comments, as they were the two members on the Joint Committee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'll just endorse what the council officers have said around it being a challenging process, because obviously we came through halfway through this review process, green to not only council but green to local alcohol policy matters. So we, like Debbie said, we had input from agencies, but the wider public input is still to come, and so I'm supportive of approving this, acknowledging that we get a chance for that feedback from the wider public, and that have an opportunity to make changes if we desire based on that public feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. Yeah, good thorough process, but yeah, it was quite difficult sort of coming into that halfway through, and I felt like some of it had already sort of, the wheels were already turning. And probably because I was so new and it was a whole new experience for me, some of those decisions that we made, I probably might look at those a little bit differently a bit further down the line. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the public consultation. I think that's really important that that comes back, and it might just help solidify some of the thoughts that I'm now having about some of those things that we discussed. So, but happy for that, for it to go out to consultation as it is.
Thank you, councillors. Any questions yet, Councillor Booth? Councillor Whittington's got it.
guess I did circulate an email to the councillors regarding some feedback that I got around some of our liquor licensing rules, and they seem quite draconian compared to the rest of the country, and I'm a little bit concerned that we've pushed on a bit too hard, and so the fact that we had our business awards, which is our premium sort of banquet event down at the Bay Hall there the other week, and you weren't allowed to buy. These are businesses, Fonterra, Oceania, a number of groups, not allowed to buy a bottle of wine for the table. Now there's certain things that are just verging on. You are allowed to buy 4 glasses of wine at once, though. So hence a whole lot more glasses required, and people who are actually looking after their table are unable to purchase a bottle of wine. That is bordering on stupidity. So I think we need to have a little bit of a discussion about all this, and certainly we don't need to be leading the world in our LAP rules and regulations. Also got feedback from the salmon people, and there was a requirement that the vendors they couldn't take their money. They actually had to set up a specific account. All the money had to go to one place, and then the organiser then had to escort the cash down to the bank in Timaru, and then put it in the bank account, and then actually divvy it and give it back to the vendors. And that's highly unusual.
It's not an alcohol policy.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm not keen on approving anything until we actually have a good look at everything.
Thank you for your feedback, Councillor Booth. Some of those things are the law. That last one, for example, is the way the law is written, that the licensee must be the person or entity that receives the proceeds from the sale of alcohol. So if I have a large event with multiple vendors, that's where that rather convoluted solution applies, which is legal, and we've had that checked when the Act was implemented, that was the correct way to attack that sort of problem. If we didn't do it that way, we'd be breaking the law. So I'd reverse that and say, if you're experiencing that differently elsewhere, those places are probably breaking the law or enabling that. So that'd be my response to that. In terms of, there is an independence that we afford the DLC, and this is the voice of the community, and they can have certain levers within a policy, but it's quite prescriptive what you can and can't influence. And then ultimately, the discretion lies with the DLC on the application of those in terms of the discretionary conditions. So the open bottle of wine or on the table, that might be something that our commissioner could take into account if she chooses to do so, but we don't have the power to influence that. This recommended change that we have here is saying that if your event that you mentioned didn't have any intoxication when we inspected it, and there was a proven track record of good behaviour and monitoring intoxication and managing it well, then that might be an option that the Commissioner could use next time, because you could bring that up, refer to this part of the LAP, the proposed LAP, in your application, and ask respectfully that that be allowed, that you're allowed to have bottles on the table. So I think that what you're asking for is within what's proposed, and it's really dependent on, firstly, a proven track record of managing intoxication really well, and secondly, the Commissioner and the DLC agreeing with what you've asked for. So that would be my answer to those two, I think.
The problem with your theory, Paul, is no one knows that. The form says you cannot have full bottles of wine.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Piddington. That's because the Commissioner has given us that. That's her view, and that's what she's holding. That's what she's how she's going to implement the Act. The purpose and object of the Act being to reduce alcohol harm. So.
But aren't we? If we're out of step with every other district, largely, why would we do that? Is my,
It's an independent body, Councillor. So it's I can't tell the Commissioner what to do or not do, but we can put give direction through this policy, which is what that clause is there for.
But that's my point though, if this clause is there, let's take it out. Because I've had complaints around the bottle of wine situation, especially as Councillor Booth points out, 4 glasses is the equivalent of a bottle.
Yeah.
So if you measured generously, so it just seems ridiculous.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in charge here. Councillor Jackson.
So what you're saying, Mr. Cooper, is that other communities, just so I'm clear on this, other communities or other councils wouldn't allow those bottles of wine either. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they have discretionary conditions in their LAPs and their local alcohol policies that the DLC can apply to licence applications to licences. And it's up to the commissioner, if it's a paper-only thing where the commissioner's looking at that, or if it's a DLC, it's up to the panel that is the DLC to decide what discretionary conditions they want on those licences. What I'm saying is, when you give that direction, clause 56, was it?
Yes. Yep.
That you will take previous good behaviour into consideration, or you must have regard to, in legal terms, what you're doing is you're signalling to the commissioner or the DLC that she or he has to take that into consideration. And the reason for that would be so that you can apply less or more discretionary conditions depending on the previous history. So it's giving that instruction that if you've got a good history and you haven't got a lot of intoxication or people, you know, where you have people vomiting, all the usual stuff you associate with excessive alcohol, then if you haven't got that history, then you could have that discretionary condition removed, or you could ask for it. And I think we have to respect the independence of the panel, but this document is our opportunity to guide that thinking. So that's what that clause 56 is actually doing, exactly what Councillor Booth's asking for.
That is definitely a shift in respect to giving the leverage to be able to probably show some practical application of what is a previous history of someone who applies for a licence and runs an event, and then apply it to the likes of the business wards before it was one fits all. But you also do need that ability because it is everything about the Act now is about reducing harm and the ability to reduce alcohol consumption through a night, and those mechanisms that are in place clearly show that that happens. It inconveniences people, and it doesn't mean that you go to a table that has 5 or 6 bottles of wine on it by the end of the night, as opposed to someone going, I can't be naffed getting 4 glasses, but some do. So it slows down the consumption, same with the host responsibility around food and all those sorts of things. But putting that in there, it does, and that we're endeavouring to see that as an alternative. It gives a really good alternative for those situations, and I think we should endorse it from that perspective, as opposed to wanting to have it completely taken out.
Thank you, councillors. Any more questions or feedback? So, Councillor Pye, happy to move the recommendation as it stands. Second to Councillor Scott. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Back to you, Mayor Nigel. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Next team, we'll move now to 8.2, which is on page 52, and this is just rubber stamping Geraldine Community Board appointment. So can I have a mover for 8.2, that Janine Adams be appointed as a voting member of the Geraldine Projects Trust? Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Yeah, would you like to speak at all?
Just a wee bit of background about the Projects Trust. It's really just a conduit for groups to put money into when they don't actually have a place to put it. It works really well for this team, and my belief is Janine's got all the skills required for that position.
Brilliant, thank you. And similar, from what sits in Temuka as well, isn't it, the Projects Trust? Seconder for that, Councillor Shannon, you were, yep. Perfect. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So 8.3 now, page 53, and the electoral system. So in front of us and happy for discussion, I think I can just walk through this. So we've got retain first past the post, adopt STV, or carry out a council initiated poll of electors. Look, I'll be straight up and saying that I'm pretty keen just to keep first past the post. My challenge with STV is you need such a massive education campaign just for people to understand it. So that's where I sit, but happy to have any further questions, comments, and then we'll see if we can zip through this. Yes, Councillor Shannon.
Yeah, likewise, Mayor Bowen. And within our community, it's not very often we get a massive number of people that are running for these particular elections, and it's really nice and simple, cut and dry. People know they're voting for who they like. End of story. Yeah.
Thank you. Look, and for those that are watching online, just to give you some information around this, council every 6 years, is it, Jackie, has to go through representation review. One of the things that we need to consider is the electoral system, which is most people know is first past the post, as in one vote for the person that is your most preferred candidate, and we've got the option of STV in front of us as well, which most people will be familiar with the health board type, when that existed, type voting system. But so any further questions? Otherwise I'm happy to move FFP. Happy to second it. Councillor Oliver. Okay, I'll put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. That's brilliant, thank you. So there's no consideration of urgent business, no minor nature. Move now to exclusion of the public. I'm happy to move that. Councillor Jackson, thank you. Put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So, yeah, sorry, short meeting for you, gents, today. We've just got a couple of items to consider in public excluded. So, thank you, and we'll just adjourn for a few minutes until we get that sorted. Thank you.